हमारी प्रतीक्षा कर रहे हो, तुम्हारी शरण मैं नहीं आ पाता. O my divine beloved, causelessly merciful Sri Krishna, having ignored you since time immemorial, I have been suffering. Committing sins life after life have made my mind so polluted. Even though your saints are telling me you're waiting for me with arms outstretched to embrace me, with a divine life to grace me, still I fail to surrender to you completely. All glories to Sri Maharaji, all glories to all saints and sages, all glories to Sri Radhe Shyam, all glories unto all aspiring souls. Thank you for joining me. Are you a shopaholic? Like any addiction, we can also become addicted to shopping. And the reason we are addicted to shopping is because we are addicted to happiness. Happiness is our intrinsic nature. Being a child of God, who is happiness personified. The Lord says in the Gita in 14:27, Sukhasya kanti kasya cha. I am the source of bliss. So we who are individual souls, a part of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, we have a natural desire for perfect happiness. And the happiness we get from purchasing items, it gives us that day a momentary joy. And then the anticipation of joy before we got that item is greater than when we have it. After a few days, we put it aside and we go on wanting something else. And we have done that innumerable times because we can't stop wanting happiness. And all that we know, what we know of happiness is what we're being sold by business, through relationships, and all are just momentary sources of what is really an excitement which diminishes after a few days. And then just to get back that momentary pleasure we had with each purchase, we have to go shopping again. So if you think of it really deeply, you will understand that it's not the things you want, it's the momentary happiness you get from each purchase. So this is our condition, and big business knows this. They have hired psychologists to study what it can be eye-catching, what can catch your mind. And so big business, knowing we have a natural desire for happiness, have groomed us through the media, using advertisement and product placing in movies, expertly put together by hired psychologists to induce the mindset that shopping is the means of attaining happiness. And we have now come up with the foolishness that who gets the most stuff will be the happiest. This grooming started from childhood. Even the education system is also geared to promote consumerism. We need to reflect on these things clearly. You see why we are settling for things to see, taste, touch, and smell, objects to see, taste, touch, smell, and feel, is because these five senses are what we enjoy life through. But as you know, everything we have enjoyed have what is called diminishing returns. When you are hungry, the first morsel of food is very delicious. The second, third, fourth, as your stomach gets filled, the food stops tasting so good as the first morsel. When you eat chocolate, the first bar of chocolate gives great pleasure. The second one, 75%, third one, 20%. If you eat more than 4 bars of chocolate, you get sick of it. It's a natural case of diminishing returns. A few moments of sexual enjoyment, when the desire is gone, the woman becomes burdensome. This is our experience. What we are experiencing and what we are hoping to gain happiness from and through cannot give us happiness. God is happiness. Sukhasyai kantikasya cha. The Lord says, I am the source of ever-increasing happiness. And we, being a fraction of God, we are called ansh, a part of God. The body, granted, it was made by your mother and father. But you who reside in the body, the conscious entity, the soul, you are a child of God. And to satisfy the body is the greatest foolishness. To satisfy the mind is the greatest foolishness. To satisfy the mind with material desires is the greatest foolishness, because we can never be happy from what is temporary. Everything here in this world that we want and hope to gain happiness through is temporary, so it could never give us complete satisfaction. We are eternal spirit souls, children of God, and we will only be satisfied. We will only stop wanting when we have the happiness that God possesses. So therefore, we need to turn to God. And the same mind that runs after the things of the world, you just need to divert it and start running after God. And by practice, you will eventually start experiencing the bliss that is in God. All the saints, they got it right. They're the real heroes of life. Follow them. These big business, the 1% of the world, the international bankers, have enslaved us through credit cards, through entertainment, because Hollywood and Bollywood, these are all used by big business. They place their products. It's called product placing in the movies. So you can, don't you see, all the advertisements are done by movie stars and actors, so that we will get the delusion that if they're happy with it, we can also be happy with it. Look at the advertisement. All the people in the advertisement, they look so happy and beautiful and young, and now we get the subliminal message that if we buy those things, we will also look and feel like those people we see in the advertisement. It's all a game. It's all grooming by big business. And they're feeding us this notion that consumerism is the path to happiness. It's a delusion. They understand how the mind works. They go even beyond the conscious mind into the subconscious mind with subliminal messages to induce shopping. And they understand this fact that Jyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Pajayati Sangat Sanjayati Kamaha Kamat Kruro Bijayati Krudhat Bhavati Sanmohaha Sanmohat Smriti Vibramaha Smriti Bamsad Burina Asho Burina Ashad. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 62-63. The Lord is explaining the cause, how the process by which we get attached to wanting this or that. When you see something again and again, the advertisement is being there again and again, that, oh, look at how those people are happy with what they're drinking and eating, what they're wearing, that particular car, that particular clothes. Oh, I want that too. I will be as happy as they are. So, when one thinks that something, some object of the senses is a source of happiness, you get attached to it. From attachment springs up a desire for it. And when the desire gets strong, immediately accompanying the desire, a seed of anger is planted, a seed of disappointment is planted. Because as described earlier, after a few days, you will put that item aside and now begin again to want something else with the hope of wanting happiness, of getting happiness, which it will never be possible. Because look in your life's history and see how many things you have bought and now you have put it aside. So when anger rises, accompanying the desire is a seed of anger. When anger grows and rises, when it bears its fruit, you know what happens first? You experience delusion. You experience forgetfulness, a confusion of memory of what is right and wrong. You will do anything to satisfy your desire. And from forgetfulness, one loses their intelligence. The first casualty of anger, look at life's history, look at your own, is a loss of reason. The intellect stops functioning. With the loss of reason, of course, you can kill, murder, steal, do anything to fulfill your desire. When anger has risen, when it's borne its fruit, then you've lost your reason. With the loss of reason, you go to complete ruination, destruction of self and whoever is around you. So, the Lord says in the Gita that Trividam naraka ashayidam divram nashanam atmanaha kam krodh tata lobas tasmat itatrayam tyajet, that there are 3 doors to hell: desire, greed, and anger. We can see clearly each desire only has 2 results. If you get what you want, a greater desire is born. And when that desire is fulfilled, an even greater desire is born. You get 1 million, you want 10 million. If you get 10 million, you want 100 million. If you get 100 million, you're looking at 1 billion. It's unstoppable. And that bucket called greed has no bottom. It is described that even the king of heaven, Lord Indra, who has unimaginable splendor, luxuries, comforts, you can put many world richest man, can't compare to Indra in his splendor, wealth. But even he is looking at the seat of Brahma. This greed goes even in the heavenly circles. So don't try to fill the pail called greed. You'll die in the effort. Many, many times you'll die, and still you will not be able to satisfy greed. It is why, and if the second result of a desire, of which there are only 2, the second result is anger. If you don't get what you want, you will get angry. And that's these 2 emotions, anger and greed, are our real source of misery. And where? It's born out of desire. Desire is the mother of the children called greed and anger. And these are the 3 gates to hell, the Lord is saying. It has taken us there many times. You have forgotten. We've been to heaven and hell many times. You have forgotten. And also, desire, greed, and anger makes this life, even this present experience in this world, a misery. Think of it. As you want something, you're anxious in getting it. When you get it, you're anxious in preserving it. And if you lose it, imagine the misery. So, reduce your want. Understand the difference between need and want. You have to satisfy your need, but don't get caught in want, or you'll become the greatest fool, and it will lead you to sin, and sin will lead you to suffering. That's why Arjun asked the question, Atakena prayuktoyam papam charti purushaha anikchana api varsne baladeva niyajitaha. My Lord, why is it that man is committing sin, seemingly unwilling to do so, as if driven by some force? The Lord says in the next verse, 336, 337, Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Kamesha Krudesha Raja Guna Samudbhavha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyehinamiha Varinam. It is desires only, born of the quality of passion. The mind has three qualities mainly: goodness, passion, and evil. We have had desires in all three many times. We keep fluctuating in all three. All the things to want in this world are really supported by the quality of mind that is passionate. It's always wishing. Night and day we are wishing for this and that. That is the quality of passion. Your mind is dominated by passion. So this quality of passion is the source of sinning. And this quality of mindset can never be satisfied. It's mahashanu. It's insatiable by nature. You will only get greedy for more. And it is mahapapma. It will make you do great sinful things to satisfy what you want. And the Lord says, Vidyehinamiha. This is your enemy. No one out there is your enemy. No greater enemy is there than a mind that is uncontrolled. And no greater friend will there be with a man who can control his mind. The Lord continues in 339 of the Gita, Avritam Jnanam Itena Jnanino Nitya Vairena Kamarupena Kunteya Dushpurena Analena Cha. These desires cover, these desires, passionate desires for the things of this world, cover knowledge. So if your knowledge is covered, it means you're not reasonable, you're not thinking clearly. Of course, you will do what is wrong when you're not thinking clearly, because these desires cover one's knowledge, which is, these desires is the greatest enemy of the wise. The wise know that these desires cover their knowledge, and the wise is always cognizant of that fact, and they recognize that desire is the greatest enemy. And these desires, they burn like an insatiable fire. More you get, more you want. So don't get caught in that trap. Consider what you need and separate it from want. The moment you don't want is that moment you're peaceful. The moment you want is that moment you begin anxiety. You see, not realizing that peace of mind, contentment, comes from desirelessness. The less you want, those are the moments when you don't want something, you're peaceful. Think of it. Imagine you have come from work, you've eaten your dinner, you throw back yourself in the hammock, and you're relaxing. You don't want to eat, you don't want to go anywhere, you don't want anything, you just want to relax. That moment when you don't want is when you were peaceful. And peace is conducive to happiness. All your wants, all your constant wishing day and night is why you're miserable. So the Lord says in 522 of the Gita, Yehi samsparsaja bhoga dukkayona evate Adyantavante kunteya nate shuramate burhaha. All pleasures born of sense contact, things to see, objects to see, desired objects, woman, car, house, money, property, things to eat, taste, touch, smell, All pleasures born of sense contact are verily sources of misery, as I explained earlier. It leaves you wanting. It leaves you with hungers. It's things that cannot satisfy. Only an ever-increasing happiness and unlimited happiness and eternal happiness, which can only be attained from God, can satisfy you, the eternal soul. So stop wasting your time. Stop being a fool. Stop being a slave to commercialism. Stop being a consumer with the hope of becoming happy. You think the saints and sages who have abandoned this materialistic lifestyle are foolish? You think Jesus was stupid? You think Muhammad was stupid? Muhammad living in a tent. Jesus said that this Son of Man has no place to rest. Birds have their nest, foxes have their hole, and this Son of Man don't even have a place to rest. They lived very simple, only satisfying need, and they cut down on all unnecessary want. So these sources of pleasures, of sense contact, are verily sources of misery. Because they have a beginning and an end, and they leave you therefore wanting. You become a shopaholic. Not because you want to buy the items that they are selling, is because you're really only after that momentary pleasure you got from each new purchase. So you've become addicted to pleasure. You're naturally addicted to pleasure, and you're trying to get it from things that only leave you wanting something else. Pleasure is there. It's in God. God is the fullness of joy. Turn to Him and you will find it. This is not religion. These are facts. This has been your experience. Just reflect. Contemplate on what you're hearing. So for this reason, because these are only temporary, has a beginning and an end, for this reason, nateshu ramate buddhaha, the wise do not run after what is temporary. You see, the temporary things, they're sweet in the beginning, but slowly they become bitter in the end. And the pursuit of God and the happiness that's God, it's bitter in the beginning because it requires shifting your mind from the world to God, shifting your mind from the world to God, and that process is bitter because you are presently attached to the world. It's not easily done, but it can be done with practice. So the pleasures of God, the divine happiness that's with God and in God and who is God, can be attained by taking up this hardship, this bitterness, which will end sweet. So the world's happiness is sweet in the beginning and bitter in the end. God's happiness is bitter in the beginning, but sweet in the end. And all those who are reasonable recognize that it's the end result you're really after. The Lord emphasizes this again in 6.2 of the Gita. Yam sanyasam iti prahu yogam tam vidi pandav nahiya sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is known as renunciation of these temporary pleasures in this world is the same that will allow you to attain union with God, because you can't stop desiring. When you desire the world, God is forgotten. When you desire God, the world is forgotten. So now when you start shifting your mind from desiring the world to desiring God, you naturally will attain union with God. Yogi tam vidi pandav. O son of Pandu, one attains union with God. For no one attains union with God whose minds, whose thoughts, who have not given up the thoughts that give rise to desires of the world. As long as your mind is full of the world, you can even be in the mandir, you can even be in the church, and because your mind is full of the desires of the world, you will be inattentive to what you're hearing in the mandir and in the church, because your thoughts follow you everywhere. Your desires follow you everywhere. You'll just be acting as if you're religious, but your mind will be full of the world. So, dear aspiring souls, consider what I'm saying to you. The Lord says in 266 of the Gita, Nasti, Buddhira yuktasya, nacha yuktasya bhavana, nacha bhavayataha shantir ashantasya kutaha sukham. The one who cannot give up the desires of this world, he becomes unreasonable. Of course, even to your family members you'll be unreasonable because your desires become more important. Look at an alcoholic. Look at a selfish man. He is unreasonable even to his own family group. And for that undisciplined man, he can't meditate on God. When your mind is full of the world, how will you have God in your mind? There will be no room for God when the mind is full of the world. So that man who can't meditate on God and who can't give up the desires of this world, he can't have peace of mind. He can't have peace of mind. And if one lacks peace of mind, if one is lacking peace of mind, how can there be happiness? Then Krishna said to Arjun, look, Arjun said, Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramati balvadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayur eva sudushkaram. That, O Krishna, the mind is fickle, turbulent, obstinate, and very powerful. I consider controlling it to be more difficult than controlling the wind. And Krishna answered that Asamsayan Mahabao Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu kuntiya vairagena cha griyate. Yes, I understand the mind is fickle, turbulent, obstinate, very difficult to control. However, with practice and with detaching your mind from the desires of the world and attaching your mind to desiring God, again it will run back to where it is presently attached to the world, and again you take it back to God. Practice again and again, daily, nightly, practice to shifting your mind from the world to God. It is possible. Many saints have done it and were successful. Shaknotaiva yahasurum prakshiri vumuk sanat kam krod bhavam vegam sayuktaha sa sukhi naraha. The one who is able in this very life to withstand, to subdue the desires for the things of this world, which only bring greed or anger, he attains union with God, and he attains the happiness that is in union with God. So my dear aspiring souls, think carefully. This comes from again and again remembering. Just practice remembering. The Lord says, Ananya chetaha satatam yomam smarati nitya saha tasyaham sulabha parta nityayuktasya yoginaha. The Lord says that the one who at all times, wanting nothing else, wanting no one else, think of going to God of, Lord, how can I serve you? Not how to get things from God, but to think of ways to please God. And the one who always remembers God in all places and at all times, always desiring association and a relationship with Him, always associating with the saintly, always chanting His names and glories and pastimes. For such a person, I am easy to attain. The Lord is Tasyaham Sulabha. For such a person, He attains me easily, because he is determined in attaining my association. And then the Lord says finally, Anta kalecha mameva smaran mukva kalevaram ya pratisa madbhavam yati nasyatra samsayaha. The one who, while leaving his body at the time of death, even at the last moment, can remember me alone, attains my state, my divine kingdom, my opulence, the kind of body I have, which is a divine, ever youthful body, the same opulence, the same kind of body, the same divine abode, the same knowledge,